For the next 25 years. That's what we should have done without money. It's also got a not so beautiful past. Last June, we took the knee on the railroad steps to remember George Floyd and the people who died in his victory. And coming out of that Black Lives Matter movement, we have people organising to make the history of Lancaster known to all. Lancaster City, the city of the slave trade. The fourth biggest slave trading port. It's not black history, it's our history. And what does Boris Johnson do? He brings in a horrible bill, but one of the things that are in the bill, he wants to protect the slave owner statues. And he says it's protecting our heritage. It is not our heritage, it is his heritage, the bosses and the ruling class who got rich from the slave trade. Ask yourself why they want to protect the statues. Ask yourself why Priti Patel attacked Black Lives Matter. I will tell you why. It's because of capitalism. Capitalism would not have taken off in this country and in America without the slave trade. And it was capitalism that led our rulers to use racism to justify the slave trade. And Boris Johnson and Priti Patel are carrying on that tradition and using racism to try to divide us. Of the Gypsy Roma and Traveller community, and they will be leading the march. And the police and crime bill has to be beaten, and we will continue to protest until it is. So as you walk around these streets, past the priory where the slave owner has a grave, past the castle where workers were in prison for 2 years for trying to fight for a better wage, past all the beautiful buildings, remember that these streets are our streets. And one day we will take control of it all and hold it in common for the benefit of everyone. I'll leave you with the words of the great Irish revolutionary James Connolly. And our victorious rallying cry shall be, we want the earth, we only want the earth. Whose streets? Whose streets? Whose city? Thank you. We'll be leaving at 12 and I've asked people to start lining up about 5 to 12. So you'll be lining up that way and then we're going that way. The right-hand side of the road, please. And the horses go down. Whose streets?
Our streets!
Whose streets?
Our streets! Who's that with the red flag? Get off the road! In! Excuse me, can you get right in off this lane, please? Thank you. Can we stay on that side of the white line? Because the traffic will be coming past this way. Hiya. Hiya, can you come in on this side of the white lines, please? Joe, this side of the white line.
And one who was brave enough to speak out in the hope to end discrimination. Not just for my own community, but for all the ethnic minority groups out there. It disgusts me that in the 21st century, people still find it acceptable to treat others as less important human beings. It bewilders me how some people still think it's acceptable to be racist to travellers. Perhaps their skin is not a different colour, or because they've got away with it for so long. Racist language is broadly used, such as Gypsy and pikey, which is highly offensive to us. There's still signs in pubs and other places that state no travellers allowed. Whole communities are banned from shops, cinemas and places like that, just because of the poor behaviour of a few. Well, let me tell you something, there's good and bad in all of us. We can't all be tarred with the same brush. Other communities are not blamed for the actions and misgivings of a few bad eggs. I am humbled that so many of you have come together today to support equal opportunities and to kill the bill. I would like to help develop an understanding for my community instead of being cast aside as rubbish. I want to give us a voice of reason. Discrimination and racism needs to be challenged. And it needs to be challenged in all walks of life, and certainly in the negative way that the media portray travellers and gypsies. It's an insult. People believe the things they see in TV shows. My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding, the Dale Farm eviction, Our Secret Life, and the new Channel 5 programme on a Wednesday at 9 o'clock Here Comes the Gypsies, where on the advert it states, you wouldn't want them as your neighbours. Most of the people on these shows are not even real travellers. They're either wannabes or actors, yet that's how we're portrayed in a bad light. We need to challenge the lack of awareness and lack of understanding of our beliefs and our culture, and exactly how unique of a culture we are. I would like to see a day when gypsies and travellers and all ethnic minorities are accepted as equals. I would like to be certain that my grandchildren and generations to come are not victimised, bullied, targeted or discriminated against. We need proper equality in this country, myself included, but for most of my community, they often have to hide their ethnicity through fear of being singled out and judged unfairly. Many travellers do not disclose their ethnicity on job applications, on GP's admission forms, and even in census paperwork, and it is time to stop this. Once we have acceptance of one another, the world will be a better place. We may not have the same beliefs, religion and ethnicity, but that shouldn't make us be treated any different, none of us. The unique thing about the world is that we all should embrace each other's differences, as we can all learn from each other and dispel any myths surrounding our culture. Racism and bigotry has been around for years. This bill uses dehumanising language where it plans to crack down on gypsies and travellers using the planning laws. We are being treated as outsiders who are unworthy of equal rights. With all types of bigotry, it comes from the top down, from Parliament, from police and other officials. Gypsies and travellers have been described in the House of Commons, and I quote, as a disease and a plague. According to the report by the Traveller Movement, 91% of the Gypsy Roma and Traveller community have experienced racism because of their ethnicity. 70% have experienced discrimination in education. Traveller families are asked to keep their children at home during SATS week so they don't affect the figures. Or they're put in a broom cupboard with a bucket of crayons and some paper so that they're segregated. 49% have found discrimination in employment and 30% in access to health. At least 3/4 of travellers hide their ethnicity because of this sort of discrimination. 77% of travellers have experienced hate speech or hate crime. Racist attacks are common, such as the burning of 3 caravans in Somerset at the end of last year, and the murder of 13-year-old Irish boy, Irish traveller Johnny Delaney, who was battered and kicked to death just for being a traveller. At sentencing, his assailants were said to have shouted, "Well, he was only an effing gypsy," but he was someone's son, someone's brother, someone's cousin. This prejudice has a long history from the 16th century laws that were put in place that threatened nomadic people with death, through to the Thatcherite Criminal Justice Act of 1994, which repealed the duty of local authorities to provide sites for gypsies and travellers. Since then, there's only been a further reduction in stopping places and authorised sites, leaving many with the only choice to either abandon their identity or use an unauthorised site. There's an adequate provision for travellers and gypsies, and that is what causes these problems. If adequate sites aren't provided, then where are they supposed to go? The new police powers in this bill would be unnecessary and authoritarian. This would give police the power to effectively kick in their doors, confiscate their trailers and motors, give them a fine of £2,500 and a 3-month prison sentence, and take their children off them, put them into care. They then would not be able to get their children back because they wouldn't have a home. These are the fears that the new proposals are causing the gypsy and traveller community. These proposals are not going to solve a problem, they will only suppress an already marginalised group. The Tories are trying to criminalise gypsies in order to hide their own failings in provision of adequate campsites. We are a scapegoated community. According to research from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, 22% of people openly express negative feelings toward Muslims, yet 44% of people openly express negative feelings toward gypsies, double the rate, and if the truth were told, it's triple, quadruple the rate. But we are both being scapegoated and blamed for problems not of our own making. Oppressive measures on the Gypsy and Traveller communities from this bill. This bill is also called, the person that wants this bill to be passed has also called for the burqa to be banned. This bill has not yet been passed and must not be passed, so it's essential that we make our voices heard. There are around 300,000 gypsies and travellers in the UK, or so it states. If the census was correct, there's double that. 26,000 people so far have not supported this bill, and the majority of police do not want these expanded powers. This is one of the harshest laws against gypsies, travellers and their way of life in decades. The government plans to strengthen police powers against people living in roadside camps. For many gypsies and travellers, this is their traditional way of life. So the government's idea is to increase a criminal defence. This bill will only affect the worst affected, and they will have nowhere to go. On top of that, they will take their homes from under them, but that isn't where it ends. The wording is so broad in this bill that it could be interpreted in so many ways, which would cause you to breach the bill. So to close, at a time where there is rising racism against Muslims, Jewish people and the Gypsy and Traveller community, we must all stand up to bigotry wherever we see it and recognise that our struggles are one and the same, because there is safety and solidarity, and safety and solidarity are more beautiful than anyone's hate. Thank you.
The people put their families and their children in boats that then capsize in the sea, and there's that amazing line that says you do that when the water is safer than the land. So just now to go through Gisla's main points about the immigration bill. The plan is trying to remove the international right to seek asylum for those entering the UK irregularly. That means that they didn't buy a ticket and come on a ferry. So we know that most refugees who do arrive in Britain have arrived irregularly. To seek asylum in another country is an international right. When there was the jungle in Calais, I remember lawyers going over and giving their services for free to try and help, particularly unaccompanied children, make asylum claims to get over to the UK. Many of those children actually died in the back of freezer vans, drowning, and eventually when the jungle was smashed up, they disappeared. That's unaccompanied children, many of whom had relatives here. People who have entered the UK irregularly will be considered inadmissible to the UK's asylum system, and the Home Office will make attempts to return them to another safe third country. Although this is contingent on securing return agreements with these countries, so they haven't even got that yet. Only if the Home Office is unable to return someone to another safe third country will people who've entered irregularly be allowed access to the UK's asylum system. However, they're also amending the whole asylum system. The government wants to replace the current asylum accommodation model with reception centres to provide basic accommodation for people while their asylum claim is processed. In Wales, where the food was absolutely inedible, and somebody is taking a lot of money to deliver that mess to people who have fled war, bombs and torture. The proposals also intend to facilitate the use of offshore processing facilities, and when I read that I just thought prison ships in the future if deemed necessary by the government. Those who have arrived irregularly and are then recognised as refugees will be granted temporary protection status. Those with temporary protection status will have no recourse to public funds and limited family reunion rights. This means that those refugees who get leave to remain in Lancaster will not be able to bring their families over, which is one of the only safe and legal routes to refugee status in the UK. Then the leave will last no longer than 30 months, after which they will be regularly reassessed for removal. I call that harassment. The bill creates a two-tier system where refugees are granted different rights and status entirely due to how they have entered the UK. So those who are resettled to the UK through government resettlement schemes will have enhanced levels of protection. The Asylum Reform Initiative, moving on to this is not the government, is a collaboration of major refugee support organisations, e.g. Refugee Action, Refugee Council, Freedom from Torture. They are launching a campaign on May the 10th called Together with Refugees in order to fight against the worst aspects of the bill. Local organisations like Global Link have joined the campaign. The shortened 6 weeks instead of 12, it was meant to be a 12-week consultation period. Surprise, surprise, that's been cut short to 6. Means that the organisation is urging people to write to immigration@britainthinks.com, and I think Gisela is over there somewhere. If you can see the Global Link banner, she's got copies of these. She's there, okay, waving. So if you need, you want the email address, go over there and get it off Gisela. And also she'll warn you of the trick questions, because we often get trick questions in those questionnaires where we answer yes and perhaps we should have said no. MPs will be debating the bill in June, so it's important to write and meet with local MPs to challenge this bill, and we've got a local MP standing right here listening to this, I believe. And then look out for the Choose Love and Freedom from Torture and other petitions. Choose Love petition against the immigration plan. Again, the links to that petition are over there with Gisela. And I think that's it. So I just want to say one thing. We shouldn't have any borders at all. If Dyson can escape tax by taking his vacuum cleaner factory abroad and then bring it back after he's made faulty ventilators and taken millions of pounds of our taxpayers' money, those that do pay tax, if he can move back into, he's back now or coming back because Boris Johnson's found a tax loop for him, if he can move his factories about, we should be able to move about. We should be able to escape torture. And I don't even care if you're an economic migrant. Everybody has a right to make a living. So no nations, no borders. Stop deportations.
Thank you, Audrey, and thank you, Gisela. Gisela is down there, as Audrey said, and that is why we say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. The speaker from ACORN is now here, so I'd like you to listen to Varey Lupton.
Workers' Day. I'm Barry, and I'm a member of ACORN. ACORN is a tenants' union. We use collective action to transform our communities and fight for a better life. One of the reasons I think ACORN is so effective is its direct action approach to any difficulties its members face. If the landlord is being unjust, we unite and confront the landlord peacefully but head on. If letting agents are treating tenants unfairly, ACORN are there in person, questioning and creating transparency around the issues raised. With this new PCSC bill, ACORN's lawful, simple actions to bring about positive and essential change will be deemed as illegal. We must protect our right to protest. This bill takes away more power from the people and places it into the hands of the state, and in turn the police and the landowners. A state which places money and profit before the well-being of the people. We all deserve a safe and affordable place to call a home. Yet so often we face challenges with landlords and letting agents, and this is when we need our unions. Protest works, direct action works. It returns the power back from the wealthy few to the people. It's our way of speaking out, of reminding property owners that we are alive and kicking and that everyone deserves a safe and affordable place to live. The bill will criminalise trespass, handing more rights of landowners at the expense of the way of life of traveller communities. Already, 92% of land in England alone is off limits to the general public. ACORN stands with the traveller community and our right to public spaces. We will not let this bill pass. Kill the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Varey. Another organisation that supported us today is Out in the Bay, and we've got two speakers. We've got Mandy and Robert. They are from Out in the Bay, and they're from Morecambe Pride and Lancaster Pride.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pride is about coming together in celebration, protest, unity and solidarity. Pride is the biggest event in the LGBTQI calendar. It's a day where everyone can be proud of who they are in a safe environment. It's a day of remembrance for the LGBT that have lost their lives throughout the years fighting for rights. It's a day of support to other countries where being gay is illegal and they have no rights. Pride is our way of supporting all of yous and all of us. The government and the gag of minority groups is an infringement of our free speech and beliefs, and our community will not be silenced in this way.
Hello. I have a belief when I set up a charity that everybody is a human being and everybody has a right to live, to be who they are. That is simply my message today. Let everybody live their lives.
Thank you, Robert and Mandy. And I just want to let you know that I've made an offer to Robert because they have to pay for private security. And we managed to steward this march today, I think, quite well. I think the trade unionists who stewarded this march should offer support to the Pride when it takes place. And we will be happy to do that, Robert and Mandy. We're going to hear from some politicians. The next speakers from the Labour Party. We have Cat Smith MP and we have Erica Lewis, who is the leader of the council.
For black and minority ethnic communities, and I think it's right and proper that this year in Lancaster at our May Day rally we talk about the discrimination that is faced by the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community. I'm going to wait till the bus has gone past. Have you got a message? Yeah. Right, I'm having the mic back, he's not saying anything. The point is that the way in which this government has, quote unquote, thanked our NHS staff who've risked their lives, and many of them lost their lives, has been by proposing an actual pay cut. And I just think that that is the slap in the face that you get from a Tory government. And many of those that have died on the front line in our NHS from black and minority ethnic communities were already facing structural racism and discrimination in our societies. So it's right and proper that at this Lancaster May Day, we talk about the fact that the Gypsy Roma Traveller community face huge discrimination. Life expectancy 10 years lower than other groups. They face discrimination in the healthcare system and lower educational outcomes. And do you know what? I stand here as a politician, and I know that politicians of all parties, including my own, have not exactly covered themselves in glory over the past, well, forever, when it comes to talking about Gypsy Roma Traveller communities. If you see the Gypsy Roma Traveller community mentioned on an election leaflet, it's not about addressing the inequalities in life expectancy. It's demonising the community, making out that this is a community that causes trouble that needs dealing with. And I apologise for all the times that my party has printed this kind of thing on its leaflets. And I pledge never to do that. I've never done that, and I would never do that. But it does take those of us who oppose racism to stand up and call it out and shout it out, even when it's not the popular thing to do, because it's the right thing to do. Because actually, if we're going to be together as one community here in Lancaster, we have to recognise that we come from many different backgrounds. So I stand in solidarity with the Gypsy Roma and Traveller community, and when I cast my vote as your MP, I'll make sure that the laws that I'm voting for or against, I vote in a way that doesn't discriminate against some of our communities here in Lancaster. And finally, there are elections on Thursday, and they matter. We've not had elections for a little while. They got cancelled last year, so it's a bumper set of elections. And I urge you to use your vote to vote for these progressive Labour candidates that we're standing here in Lancaster. I have never been more confident that the candidates that we are standing in Lancaster share my values, oppose racism, recognise the climate crisis, and want to do things to address that. So please, use your vote on Thursday to vote Labour and stand in solidarity with all our communities right across the Lancaster district. Solidarity and happy May Day.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you, Eli. I hope Eli grows up to be like his mum, an activist and a trade unionist. The next speaker is Erica Lewis, the leader of the council.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Dr. Erica Lewis, the leader of Lancaster City Council. I'm delighted so many of us could be here in person and send greetings to those who feel they still cannot safely join us. The COVID pandemic has been a challenge to all of us and a personal tragedy to many who have lost loved ones, income or employment. And as Kat has noted, more often than not, those tragedies have hit the people who live every day with the injustices manifest in our system through gender, race, class, religion, disability, gender identity and sexual orientation. The pandemic has highlighted just how important public services are and our strength as a community. Our NHS and key workers have been amazing, and I have been so very proud of our council officers. Our local Labor-led City Council never jumped on the bandwagon of outsourcing, and we saw the benefit of that day after.
But over the years, here in Dalton Square, we have used this lovely square to protest a range of things. To end racism, to stop the war, to cancel international debt which paralyses the global south, to make poverty history, to fight against the fracking industry. It was here in Dalton Square about a decade ago that some of our friends here set up Occupy Lancaster to stand in solidarity with the fight against inequality, part of the anti-consumerist, pro-environmental movement to put people at the heart of economics. But this year, our protest is about the right to protest. Our government is intending to restrict our freedoms, to fight for equality, social, racial, economic and environmental justice. This police crime and sentencing bill gives more powers to the police to decide what's a nuisance, to decide whether noise at a protest is just too inconvenient and warrants arrest. The right to peaceful protest is a fundamental right of our democracy, and this is a dangerous attempt to contain it. It's an assault on our democratic freedoms. And we know that our government is trying to rush this through as a knee-jerk reaction to last year's Black Lives Matter protests and the Extinction Rebellion protests, which its far-right MPs just didn't like.
Over the years. We may be a small group here, but we know every year when we come together to celebrate International Workers' Day that we are part of a global movement. There are hundreds of protests and celebrations going on up and down the country today. And we celebrate the hard-won rights of workers over the years. It was about 130 years ago that Labour Day first was founded to celebrate at that time the 8-hour working day. Right now, across Lancashire, about 14% of our workers are on the furlough scheme. That's the scheme that the government is intending to cover by September. Many
those people are in low-paid jobs, and depending on whether the so-called new business model works, may be facing unemployment and therefore hardship, poverty and children's hunger again. So we still have to fight to make sure that our welfare system means just that. That our rich, developed country enshrines the right to decent support, no matter what the crisis, no matter the vagaries of our economic, social system. This is something that's at the heart of Green Party policy, and we will keep campaigning for it. The universal basic income. Branch revival of our democratic systems. The time is way overdue to get rid of the archaic House of Lords, to replace the unfair first-past-the-post system with proportional representation. And for our publicly funded BBC to stop pandering to their friends in government and start challenging the Prime Minister and his constant lies. So friends, there is lots to protest about, and we always have, and we always will. Let's stay united and resolved. Today, I'm really proud to stand here in solidarity with all of you. We will fight to kill this bill, and we will never be silenced in our fight for fairness and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. The next two speakers are Tina and Bex, and they want to be introduced as the Lancashire Nannas.
Hi, I'm Bex, and I'm not an activist, and I'm not a politician, and some of my words might not be as impressive as some of the wonderful speakers we've heard today. I'm an artist, and I'm a mother. In 2011, two things happened that changed my life. I became a grandmother, and I was woken up by an earthquake in Fleetwood. Obviously, the earthquake was from the fracking. The rest is history. The first protest I went to was at Barton Moss, and as I peacefully slow walked a truck down the lane, behind me a police van half my age persistently punched me in the back and kicked me in the back of my ankle. When I turned round and asked him to please stop, he said, "Why don't you lot race to the end of the lane and the winner can have a bath and a job?" I'd closed my shop to be there that day, and I'd showered that morning. After this, the things I saw from our police at protest sickened, saddened and shocked me. I saw a disabled veteran tipped out of a wheelchair for no reason more than once. I saw pensioners, grandmothers like me, bullied, belittled, abused, assaulted for no reason. And that was before this bill was even mentioned. I can only imagine how it's going to be if this bill becomes a thing. I'm scared. The earthquakes might have stopped for now, but I don't want my grandchildren growing up in a police state where they have no voice. As nannas, our fight has always been about protecting our grandchildren and your grandchildren and their right to a healthy and democratic future. And that's why we can't stop, and we won't stop. This bill is designed to divide and silence us, but it'll only serve to unite and strengthen us. We know that some of us and some of you are feeling overwhelmed and worried and tired by this point. And where do we turn when we're threatened? Where do we turn when the police oath to uphold fundamental human rights and accord equal respect to all people is becoming a farce, where they're becoming nothing more than a private army protecting corporate interests, and our rights and our future are being sold off and poisoned? Well, we nannas stand in solidarity. It doesn't matter what you're fighting for, if it's workers' rights, if it's the climate, if it's the right to roam or public services. The nannas are standing by you. We're all united. So if you're at a protest and you're a bit down, you see these yellow tabards, come and see your nana. We're all your nana. and we'll be there, and we'll love you, we'll support you, and we'll even give you tea and cake. Ban the bill. Thank you.
I want to talk about what seems to me to be the most corrupt government I have ever seen. They act with impunity, they lie, and they are criminal. And yet they bring out a police bill for us, the people who are fighting for our children and our rights as humans to live where we choose, roam where we choose, and our right to earn a decent living. And all the time that is happening, we are watching them, and they don't seem to care that we know. They lie, they know we know they're lying, and they don't care. Someone explained that to me as a power play. That's part of having that power, is being willing to say, yeah, I know you know I'm lying, but because there's nothing you can do about this, it doesn't matter. We've watched them fund their mates' companies to get poor equipment for our frontline workers. This led to death and suffering. They are currently literally killing people. And then they think that the right thing to do at a time like this is to bring out a bill for more criminality on us, to be able to justify the law used against us. As Bex mentioned, we've seen how the police already abuse the powers they do have. The last thing they need is more power. What they actually need is better training and to understand the use of restraint. We saw many times when we did the 1,000-day protest at Preston New Road that they would handle women in the same way they would handle a large man on a Saturday night with a few beers in his belly. And they would throw them with the same force, but they went flying further. There is no way that we can respect this.
I'm also a Unison activist currently standing for the NEC. As I just said, I've worked in the NHS for 11 years. Sadly, that means that I've worked totally under a Tory government. But I've seen firsthand what Tory outsourcing and privatisation has done. I've seen firsthand the demoralisation of my colleagues. Now, we're now 12 months into a pandemic. About a year ago, working on the front line, looking after those with COVID, I sadly got COVID and went into organ failure. This has left me with type 1 diabetes, which means that's a massive life-changing event for me. And what do we get as a thank you? A measly 1% pay rise on offer, a £50 gift voucher from our trust, £2.50 it works out as in a pay rise, £2.50. Yearly, that is less than one roll of wallpaper for Boris Johnson's new flat. Absolutely disgraceful. And it's now, on this day, that we should come together, and even my union and all unions stand up and say, no, we want a real living wage, a real pay rise. Nurses shouldn't be on the front line looking after people and then going straight to a food bank. Now, I could stand up here all day and criticise what's been going on over the last 11 years, but I want us all to remember why we're here today. Today is International Workers' Day. It's a day for us. It's a day for workers. It's a day for the working class. It's a day to stand up and celebrate our achievements, how far we've come, but not forget the struggles that still await us. My union branch up the coast at Cumberland Infirmary have been out on strike over the last month. 10 years ago, their domestic services were outsourced to a company called Mighty. This company has held 10 years of back pay in unsociable hours for them. And comrades, I can tell you today that after 3 days of industrial action, Mighty have backed down, Unison have won, and the members have won their money. So today I want you to take away one thing. The solidarity that I see in everyone here. And remember, today is for us. Today isn't to be silent. Today is to stand up. Today is to shout. Today is to fight. Thank you. Solidarity.
Thank you, Ian. And it just, remember, every single victory, and it just shows you that if you do fight, we can win. And the next speaker is the Secretary of my union, the National Education Union, and I'm proud of my union, what we've done, and I'm going to allow Sam Huddin. That was disgraceful.
Thank you, Eugene, for that. International Workers' Memorial Day, 28th of April, this Wednesday, is when we remember those killed or injured at work or by work. May Day also celebrates the work that all workers do and the rights that we have won over the decades, often by collective action opposed by governments. This is not new where we are. This is where we are supposed to be, fighting for our rights and make sure that we get them back. But the Police Crime Sentencing Courts Bill being pushed through by this government is yet another attempt to silence the voices that call for better conditions for all workers, for all citizens, and for the National Education Union, for all our children. Since last spring, COVID-19 has focused everyone's minds on the link between health and safety at work and the wider public health, and how essential key workers are to the very fabric of society. It's been mentioned time and time again. It's shown that we need NHS staff, critical to fighting the pandemic. And we also need cleaners, shop workers, delivery and bus drivers, postal workers, and our own members in education. Fundamental to the success of all public sector areas are workforces supported by immigrants from abroad. Fundamental to the fair treatment of all these is the ability and the right to speak out when faced with injustice. The right to peaceful assembly and protest are fundamental principles of any democracy, but especially at a time when we see the depth of injustice that injustice, for example, faced by refugees that are trying to escape life-threatening attacks abroad, and when then facing lethal conditions in UK ex-military detention centres. When we see black rights action being described shamefully by the current Home Secretary as dreadful. When we see Extinction Rebellion actions as an attack on democracy. What irony, what shame on this government if they could feel it, which they can't, which is why we need to get rid of them. No shame recognised even when Sarah Everard vigils were criticised under the pretence of fear of the spread of COVID-19. That was shameful. We must oppose all the proposed parts of this bill that give the police new powers that undemocratically seek to limit peaceful protest. We have seen the damage that the prevent strategy has already inflicted in schools on freedom of speech. The fight to remove that strategy must also go on. As local secretary of the National Education Union, I am proud that the NEU has agreed formally at its recent annual conference to oppose this bill, and we will continue to relentlessly look after the health and safety and welfare and lives of all our children and our staff across the district, across the region, across the countries. And we celebrate that ongoing commitment this year on International Workers' Memorial Day. Knowledge is power. Solidarity.
Thank you. We represent university workers alongside Unison and our brothers and sisters and siblings in Unite. On campuses, it's fantastic to recognise people who stood with us on the picket line. It's great to see our comrades in the Education Union, to see everyone across the union movement, and to see ACORN. Big shout out to ACORN. We've talked about, and I'm going to be very brief, so because it's getting a bit chilly now, and we've had amazing speakers, and thank you everyone for coming out today. But we've been talking about how the bill is going to silence us, and one of the most biggest threats to silencing on UK campuses now is our ability to speak out in support of a group globally that are persecuted, and that is the Palestinians. We are very, very worried as free thinkers, as academics, as professionals, and as student activists that we will not be allowed to speak for Palestinians and to speak on their behalf, and that we will be accused of anti-Semitism when we are simply speaking for the human rights of Palestinians. We have seen the damage that that has done to the Labour Party, and we will not allow that to take place on campuses. We, the trade union movement, is an anti-racist movement. We will stand up against anti-Semitism, against Islamic hate, against Muslim hate, because it's not fear of Muslims, it's hate of Muslims. We will stand up against anti-black hate. We will stand up against every form of racism. We will stand in solidarity with travellers, and we will stand for freedom of speech on campuses in solidarity with Palestinians. We will not be intimidated into silence.
Thank you, Julie. And we're just going to end with a song. And if you don't know the words of the chorus, it is... Well, I'll let them talk. I'll tell you the words and then you can see it. Solidarity forever, and the union makes us strong.
Okay, everybody, no excuses for not joining in. We're going to be watching, okay? Solidarity is more beautiful than hate, okay? When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever. You're not singing, come on! Solidarity forever, and the union makes us strong. Is there aught we hold in common with the greedy parasite who would lash us into serfdom and would crush us with his might? Is there anything left to us but to organise and fight? For the union makes us strong. Come on!
Who's in hospital? Who is injured?
I don't know her name. They not know.
Who's injured? Who's injured?
She's got an ambulance, but solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Stronger than the police. All the brothers of our drums is apples and apples alone. We have laid the wide foundation, built its road stone by stone. It is ours, not to slave in, but to master and to own. How the union makes us solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Yes, it does. As we who proud... Oh, I've done that one already. Okay, where am I? Okay. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power and gain our freedom when we learn that the... Yes. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the unions In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than their might of armies magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the unions make us strong. One more time, come on! Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the unions make us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the unions make us strong.
Thank you, Felicity and Paul. I'd just like to thank a few more people as well. Billy Pye and all the stewards who helped steward the march. I think we did a great job. And I also want to say that there is a online Mayday video. Some of the people you heard speak today are on it, and there are other people on it. And you can view that on YouTube and on Facebook. So thanks everybody, and solidarity!
Solidarity!
Hey, some of us are going to be back here at 6 p.m. tonight. We've been out every Saturday, every week for the Kill the Bill protests against the new police and crime bill that we've heard a lot about tonight. We'd love to see some of you there. We're an independently organised, trans-feminist protest, and we haven't stopped since the bill was announced because we don't believe that the struggle against it stops for anyone. That's 6 p.m. tonight. We'll see you there.
You're absolutely right. We have to continue to fight to kill the bill. Kill the bill!
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 Solidarity, comrades!
Solidarity, comrades.